It's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast, live from my car edition. Dave Sterling is here. How's it going, sir?
I am doing well. I am glad, the ones that you do by yourself in your car, seems like you're lonely, and I'm glad I could just keep you company for a little bit.
Well, and we're not driving anywhere, so anybody who ever worries about my safety while I record while driving doesn't have to worry about it.
We're currently looking at a courthouse, so there's nothing we can do wrong here.
It's a lovely fountain, a water feature at the...
It's Friday, actually.
Good Friday.
Sometimes you'll get weddings.
I guess.
You will. We'll see
at the courthouse.
People come out and have nice little ceremonies out here by the fountain.
Because if you're going to get married, you want to get married at a courthouse between a couple of hotels and a Panini's.
Yep. That's where you have the reception.
Right.
Is at the Panini's.
So no HSBs this week.
No. And I don't want to cause dispute with other members of the HSBs. Essentially, I hurt my hand pretty bad, and it's put me in a grumpy mood. And so I was very
salty.
Yeah, we all got together normally, like we do every other Wednesday, and I was just in a bad mood, and the chemistry was not there. And so we decided, we have half hour of recorded. I decided not to release it. I think about 5 minutes of that is silence when we went upstairs to investigate what the dog was barking at. That turned out to be a skunk, so we're all happy that none of us got sprayed by a skunk. We were going to count it as a win and just gave up at that point. Like, okay, we haven't been sprayed by a skunk, so let's call it a day.
I'm pretty sure I've already told this story on the podcast, but I had a skunk in my house once.
In the house?
The dogs chased it in the house, and my wife left the door open long enough. So my dogs go out and they go tearing off, and they end up chasing a skunk back toward the door. And rather than shutting the door, my wife was trying to save the dogs from the skunk.
Yeah.
And the skunk was in my basement.
Oh, boy.
And so we ended up putting the dogs in the garage for the night, leaving the doors open. The skunk was blocked off from the rest of the house, thankfully.
Right.
But... it was a nervous night of sleep waiting for that thing to leave.
Yeah, I bet. Well, the day I had, and this is the story that I would have told on the HSB, so all of our listeners will be getting the same content. I started having a wonderful morning. Eagle-eared listeners of the HSBs will have picked up on some hints that my wife is going to have our first baby coming up in a few months. So we went to our 20-week ultrasound Wednesday morning. And so I had this magical experience all morning. We both had told work that we were coming in after lunch. So we ended up being done at the hospital at 10:30. We went down and had some basically lunch at the Honeymoon Grill after our ultrasound, had an enjoyable time. And I went to work, and 5 minutes into my workday, part had been completed on the 3D printer and needed to be removed from the platter. And to do that, you use a giant industrial putty knife. And I decided to jam that directly into my left palm. And so I went to the hospital, got 5 stitches. And the other bit of news that has to do with all this is we're also moving. So all the billion little tasks I need to do to get my house sold now have to be done with one arm.
Well, you shouldn't have stabbed your left hand.
That is, I agree. I thought that actually 0.02 seconds after I stabbed my left hand that I really shouldn't have done that.
It's funny, man, because well, it's not funny, but this part's funny.
Now that it's happened, it's funny.
I got a mandolin slicer for Christmas.
Oh,
And I'm gonna buy those chainmail gloves.
Yeah.
Because I can't even fathom what that thing does to potatoes now.
Yeah.
I just can't fathom what it would do.
Let me give you a piece of advice. Use the guard. You're like, oh, I can do this without the guard. Use the guard.
I'm going to use the guard, and I bought the chainmail gloves for $8 on Amazon.
I am going to do that too for future 3D printing projects.
Yeah, obviously in hindsight.
Well,
but,
if I don't learn from it, what was the point, you know?
So you did say that you might turn that HSB's audio into a clip show. So we might get something out of it.
Possibly. I'll see if I can find some highlights.
The hottest of the hot takes.
Yeah, mostly a lot of it was we realized that every time Yazin has the opportunity to say the word balls, he says it and emphasizes it and then giggles right afterwards.
What is funny?
It is. So I think I'm going to definitely put together a balls clip of him saying balls a bunch.
Well, my 7-year-old is finally at the stage where everything about farts is funny.
So
especially the
you're
word
saying
farts.
You're saying from when you learn about farts to the day you die?
Yeah,
that's the age range.
Right, but now at 7, it's official. He knows it,
right?
And because his soon-to-be 5-year-old brother has an older brother, he's going to get farts even earlier.
He's going to get an earlier, yeah, and then they will remain funny for the rest of his life.
Yeah, basically, it's it's kind of an accepted part of. I was going to say manhood. But I think there are plenty of women out there who think farts are hysterical too.
They just don't admit it like we do. They don't. They pretend to be above it, but they're not.
And you can go too far. I remember at certain points of my fandom of the Howard Stern show, where they just kept playing fart sound effects over and over and over for weeks on end, and be like, I mean, I even understand the comedic purpose of drilling it into the ground.
Right, but after a while, you're just listening to a bunch of farts.
We got to cover new fart ground.
Yeah.
All right. So it's also, depending on when you're hearing this, the Cavaliers will have started the playoffs. We are going to talk a little bit about sports.
Well, yeah.
So the Cavaliers are starting the playoffs. First up, the Pacers. The Cavaliers looked like garbage from the All-Star game on, pretty much.
Yeah, they had a couple of flashes of non-garbage, but I'm just going to go ahead and give you all three of my team takes right now. Indians are going to finish 4 and 158. They're never going to win another game.
That's depressing.
Cavs are going to get swept out of the first round.
That's depressing.
And the Browns are going to somehow draft Johnny Manziel again. Like, they're going to use their first pick on Johnny Manziel again.
I don't even think that's possible, but
and
that's equally depressing.
Then their 12th pick on Brandon Wheaton. They're going to get both of them. They're going to have them compete for the starting job.
Johnny Manziel and Brandon Wheaton.
So that's what's...
It's like a reality show. It's going to be the best season of Hard Knocks ever. Before we met up here, I was reading an article by Mike Freeman where he had sourced a couple league executives who were talking they were talking about the Browns and how important this draft is, but they were saying, no, but seriously, we're worried about the Browns because at a certain point, when a team is as bad and is such a diseased appendage as the Browns have been, it becomes a league issue instead of just a team issue. And in an ultra-competitive league like the NFL, when pity starts getting thrown around, this was Mike Freeman's point, it's serious.
Yeah. It's like we don't want to have one of these teams that is just laughable.
Well, and at a certain point, it is the NFL's fault.
No, absolutely.
You can blame the Dunkin' Donuts franchise owner for having a bad Dunkin' Donuts, but you also have to blame the person who approved that franchise owner at a certain point.
Well, and Terry Pluto has an excellent book about it. It's the way the team was brought back in 1999 is the NFL's fault, and it's been a hindrance ever since. And the team leaving in the first place is the NFL's fault.
They sided with Art Modell.
Mm-hmm.
They picked Alfred Lerner. They enabled Randy Lerner. And they inserted Jimmy Haslam straight from Mr. Rooney's Steelers.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not our fault. The embarrassment, all the different embarrassments that have become the Cleveland Browns, they're the NFL's fault. Robert Kraft has more blame and on his shoulders, and the Rooney family has more blame on their shoulders. Rest in peace. But the Browns are kind of your fault.
Well, yeah, and that's where it's like in the ultra-competitive NFL, that's where it's like when you're playing a game of hearts, and I won't get into politics, but it's like you can tell somebody's trying to shoot the moon and nobody's willing to take one for the team so that person doesn't do it. So it's like, yeah, the rest of the teams in the NFL, boy, they're terrible. Well, are you going to make this trade with them? Well, yeah, I know I'm screwing them, but I got to win, and like nobody's stopping any of this stuff from happening. No, give him that guy who we probably know is under investigation from the FBI.
Well,
give it to him.
You try and imagine a scenario where Adam Silver lets this happen in the NBA,
right?
Where he forces an owner to sell the team.
Right, or he stops a trade.
He stops a trade. That might have been David Stern, but same
was that
thing,
still Stern? Yeah.
No, you're right. It was the Chris Paul trade to the Lakers.
Yeah.
He nixed that trade because at the time the Hornets were owned by the league or whatever.
Yeah.
And they were owned by the league because the league needed to take care of its business. The league should have taken control of the Browns. This was something else Mike Freeman wrote in his article. I can't remember if his source indicated this or whether he was speculating, but this idea that somebody shouldn't have taken over for what has passed for professional football in Cleveland over the last few years.
Right.
At a certain point, it would make some sense.
Well, and that's the thing is when Randy Lerner wanted to sell, they essentially Randy Lerner said, "I want to get out of this," and the NFL said, "Okay, well, we picked this guy." So in essence, they went one step shorter of taking over the team. They said, "Oh, well, here's our pre-vetted guy," and we also gave him this angry-looking dude to help him.
This angry demon named Joe Banner.
Yeah, who just scowls at things all day. And so they kind of made this pre-made package.
Joe Banner, who's so old he can't close his mouth anymore.
And I just assume he just goes, meh, all the time. But yeah, so they give Randy Lerner this pre-made package. He washes his hands of it because he clearly didn't enjoy it. And I don't even blame Randy Lerner. He tried several different things. He tried being hands-on, nothing happened. He tried being hands-off. He tried Mike Holmgren. He tried all these things, and he didn't want to be there. Al was the guy who owned it, and Al was the guy who loved it, and that wasn't him. So I don't know. You're right, though. How did it? To the fact that you built the cookie cutter stadium, you came back a year too early.
You didn't give as many draft picks as Jacksonville and Carolina got.
So we just have to be the examples of why they changed those policies and rules. And
once upon a time, a friend of mine was saying that the NFL owed Cleveland more draft picks just to make it right, to prop them up. And this was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, dude, you're crazy. That's nuts. They would never do that. They should never do that. They just need one of these, and on and on and on. This was when I was still kind of optimistic. Like, oh, they're just a couple executives away from turning it around and everything else. And he was right. He was right. That league should have created new rules to make up for for how badly one of their markets was getting screwed over. But now it's impossible to even imagine. This league is in dire trouble. They can talk about their rising revenue base all they want, but the amount of fans that got marginalized in the last 18 months between St. Louis, LA, San Diego, Oakland, Vegas, I mean, this is bad business. And I don't care I don't care what anybody says. You can't tell me this is good for business.
No, and I can't find anybody who's really excited about all these moves either. Like the San Diego stuff, I mean, it's just to have a team that's been there and is just kind of embedded in the city, and I just can't to have no team in LA for as long as they did and have no real uproar. The only uproar was from people who wanted to own a team in LA and didn't. It wasn't fans clamoring for a team in LA and then them saying, well, you know what? We should put 2 there.
Well, and the reason that they let the Rams move back is because their owner had a property deal. So he has a property deal so that he could increase the value of that property by bringing a football stadium and putting it in the middle of it to go along with all the shopping. I think that it's a giant, like, Mall of America shopping complex thing now. And this whole thing. So I hate when, like, political conversations turn into follow the money. But this is a perfect example of follow the money. Okay? You take a team that wants to take $500 million or more in order to fund a new stadium. And the Rams, or not the Rams, the Chargers' problem was the stadium. Mm-hmm. And they couldn't get the financing or whatever they needed they couldn't get the money out of the city, and the city wouldn't build the stadium. So now, instead of just saying, okay, we're the NFL, we have the money, we're going to put up the $500 million or $600 million or whatever it costs to do a new stadium today, they are going to move the team to a place where they can find that amount of public money to build the stadium.
Right.
And then the Chargers have to pay a move fee, a relocation fee. The relocation fee is about as much as like half of a stadium.
Right.
So they're in essence taking public money from a place that has it available and then turning that into the relocation fee and handing it back to the other owners who all split it up.
Right.
They're basically stealing money from local governments. Like, I hate to be the follow the money guy, but follow the money. That's what's happening.
Well, and I find a similar thing going through our whole mortgage process of getting a mortgage for this house. If you do the math, and I don't recommend that you do this because
don't do the math,
because you'll just make yourself sick. But if you multiply your payments times the number times 12 times 30 and see how much you're actually paying for your house over the course of 30 years.
Oh no, it's a $200,000 house at 5% interest. Like I think I just paid $900,000 for this house.
So you're like, okay, that's their game. That's how they make money. And I know I need somebody to loan me that money. They should make some money on it, blah, blah, blah. But then for them to have the balls to ask for a $1,400 loan origination fee, it's the same thing with the stadiums. It's like, okay, you own this business. I'm sure you could get financing from a bank to loan you the money to build a stadium because the NFL business for the foreseeable future is profitable. You will make that money back and you will profit from it. What's wrong with playing the long game these days? You know, the mortgage people, play your long game. Make your ridiculous amount of money off of me over the course of the 30 years. But then they go, well, we got to do this paperwork. Yeah, that's part of the money you're making on the interest. That's what that's for. That's supposed to cover your costs.
No, and that's part of it too. So not only does Cleveland own the stadium, mm-hmm. They don't get hardly any rent. I think they get like $700,000 a year in rent. They have to pay their own property taxes, I think, and then they have ongoing payments to keep the stadium in the top 10 of whatever, and they have to participate in the sidewalks and infrastructure around the stadium. Like, so everybody who always says, well, we own the stadium, it's only because it's more convenient for the owner of the franchise that we own the stadium. It's not a big asset for us. When Heinen's builds downtown, we build their sidewalks for them, and we may give them a tax abatement, but we don't pay for their shelves.
Right.
And we don't put in their lighting for them.
Right.
You know,
we don't pay them a monthly stipend.
No, they buy the building themselves, or they pay rent to somebody who owns the building.
Well, I am not a complete... I mean, you talk to some people, and you can say, well, no public money should ever go to any sports team or anything like that. I can't... I mean, in my real-world life, we got some tax abatements to build our machine shop in the city we're in. They gave us some incentives to build there because now they have... payroll tax, property tax, people working there, and it works. And if you take a look at a picture of downtown Cleveland before Gateway, that plan worked. Downtown is vibrant. Downtown is happening. A lot of people are employed in stuff that probably spawned from Cleveland going, you were worried about driving through here until we put these things here. And so that, to me, is something that worked. And the Brown Stadium is something different.
I agree with you. I think business development and some tax abatement, I think it's really good for a city to participate and make the ease of doing business, especially for something as vanity as professional sports. I think it is worthwhile. There's just a limit.
Oh, absolutely. So, and like you said...
But neither one of us is the psycho who's like, not a public dime should ever go... No, I think so, too.
Well, it's the same thing of whenever there's a school levy up, they don't They don't say, well, we're going to cut administrative costs by this, or we're going to stretch the books another year. They go, we're going to cut busing and art. Deal with it. And so they pick the thing that's going to hurt the most. And the same thing with these stadium deals. They go, well, we'll move the team if you won't build us a stadium. Like, They go to that first card to be played.
Right.
Because that's the thing that's going to get people on both sides fired up. So the people go, well, you can't cut busing. We need to get our kids to school, and you can't cut art. We need art. And so that's what gets people fired up, and then they go, we'll vote for it then.
Well, and they do play the we don't want our teams to move. They play the we don't want our teams to move card all the time, whether it's the syntax or anything else.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought we weren't going to get into hot takes, and we ended up kind of screaming about
at this point, like I said, the Indians are going to go 4-158. They're never going to win another game. Corey Kluber's going to punch Slider, and Slider's going to hit his arm, and it's going to fall off. And
Michael Martinez is going to be the new closer.
Yeah, and the Cavs are going to waive LeBron James so they can bring back Larry Sanders, because there was a lot of outcry of Larry Sanders, so they're going to waive LeBron to create a roster spot, and they're never going to win another game.
Dan Gilbert's going to get his inner Belichick. He's not going to bring back Griffin.
Nope.
And he's going to cut LeBron James for diminishing skills.
Yep. It's time for the new people to step up. Yeah. So there's no point in talking about sports. Everything's so depressing right now. Oh, wait. NBA playoffs are the best. I forgot. Never mind.
All right. Well, I guess that's all we need to do. We did it.
Yeah, we did.
What else do we need to talk about? Was there anything else we wanted to discuss?
No, cut hand, moving sports. I think
the HSBs?
The HSBs, yeah, we'll be back. Again, I'm going to say this to everybody. With the onset of an oncoming baby and moving, I hope to bring you as many HSBs episodes as possible, but there might be some gaps there. So I will try to do what I can.
Well, we'll try and survive without you.
I know.
Cancel every other episode anyway, because you guys are salty.
It's going to make for one hell of a clip show.
Will there ever be a return of the Friday Fumble special episodes?
Yes, we are planning on doing a draft special. So that we are planning on doing it. I already have Will Gibson with a Twitter commitment that he will be involved.
Sometimes when I listen to the HSBs, I'm waiting to hear like the little sound effects. And
we can add that back in if you want, actually. That would be kind of good.
They never come in anymore. I like that. I used to wait for that to like...
That's how you know it's on to the next segment.
My favorite was like when you'd leave just enough of like an awkward pause
the awkward,
at the end.
I became an artist with the awkward pause when I did the editing for that.
And it would be like... and then Yaz would say something crazy.
Well, let's hope. Yeah, then Yaz would just say something non sequitur. Let's hope that the Browns return to at least mediocrity so that the Friday Fumble may return, because last year was tough on everybody.
Dude, I don't want to write about them.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about them. I don't want to write about them. I don't think they deserve it.
And the satire humor was funny when we won 3 games. And there was the long drought and the descent into madness and all that, but they were not even worthy of satire last year.
No.
You just felt bad for them. Like that. I don't know how you feel about it. Last year, I felt sympathy for the guys on the Browns team.
Yep.
Because they're like, we have to do this.
And Hugh.
Yeah. And frankly, the guys in the front office too. They're like, we just got here. We've done what we could so far, and not Haslam as much. It got
so bad that we felt bad for the coach making like $6 or $7 million a year.
Well, and how does it feel to be one of the players on the team that, okay, we're bad, we haven't won a game, you play for the team, and the coach gets up there and goes, we just don't have the talent to compete right now. And then you're like, well, wait, that's me. Oh, shit. I personally suck. Great.
Yeah. That could all change on draft night. Do you have draft night plans, or are you going to stay home?
I don't know. No, we should do something. Let's do something. When's the draft? The 20-something?
Every year, I go to the Cleveland Frowns party on West 9th at the Map Room.
I went with you last year, right? No, 2 years ago I went.
We skipped last year.
We skipped last year. Hey, 2 first-round picks. Let's do something fun.
Yeah, I mean...
Why don't we have a waiting for next year party?
It can't take that...
Somewhere else.
It can't take that long to get to number 12, and we can go home.
Yeah, exactly. Until they trade back up to pick up
Well,
first of all,
after they trade down from number 1
to get who's at number 22, because that's what we're going to get. We're going to end up with the 22nd pick, and we're going to pick a terrible quarterback.
That's when they're going to take Johnny Manziel again, right?
Brandon Weeden and Johnny Manziel at 22.
With Brady Quinn signed to the practice squad. Oh, God.
So
that's the perfect place to start.
Yeah, that's our prediction, so it literally can't get worse than that.
So, live from Stowe. Or is this technically Stowe?
Yeah, you're in Stowe.
All right. So, live from Stowe. For Dave Sterling, I'm Craig Lindell. Have a nice Easter. Talk to you next time.